Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special webinar here from the Evolution of Medicine. Super excited to be here with you this evening. Tonight's event is called Successful Models for Functional Medicine Delivery. And we're going to talk about all aspects of functional medicine practice management. I'm excited as ever to have Dr. Uli Isalo here. He's the Chief Operating Officer of the Evolution of Medicine. We've worked together for 6 years, and really glad to have you on here again, Uli. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, super excited to be on and sharing what's really working right now in terms of marketing your practice and getting your practice to thrive. And so we have lots in store tonight.
And a special guest here this evening. We wanted to bring someone who has actually used the Practice Accelerator on, and someone whose clinic is really thriving. I had the opportunity back in August to go up to Idaho to visit Functional Medicine Idaho. If you've been following along our content, earlier this year we did an interview with the whole team there, but I thought we would bring on Tamra here, and without meaning to dismiss anyone else in the practice. Obviously the brains of the operation, right, Tamra?
It takes a team for sure. Great compliment.
Yeah, so Functional Medicine Idaho has an incredible team up there, and we're going to hear a little bit later as to sort of some of the team dynamics and how that's brought together. But Tamra is a nurse and the clinical operations manager there at Functional Medicine Idaho. And if you haven't seen what they're up to in the last month, we've put out a tour of the clinic that had some real pearls in there about, you can actually physically see some of the things that they're doing with onboarding patients, with groups, with their practitioner teams. We're going to be talking about some of that tonight. And then also, I wanted to, there's also an interview there that we did with Paulette Jordan, who's running for US Senate on a platform of functional medicine for everyone. I wanted to show her what a functional medicine practice that takes insurance and takes people from preconception all the way through family medicine. So all that content is on our YouTube channel if you want to check it out. But I guess where I really want to start here today, and maybe Uli, we could start with this, is that, since we last did a webinar like this, the world changed, right? The world changed with COVID. The practice of medicine changed. Certainly the practice of primary care and family medicine changed. And I know that there was a lot of change for people, who are practicing functional medicine. There's a big shock to the system. And when there's a shock to the system, we realize how maybe irresilient some of our practices were. So Uli, what do you see as I know that you're working, day to day with practices on different parts. I mean, obviously there are some big fundamentals, right? There's more and more consumers feeling okay with using Zoom and using digital. Like even my parents can use Zoom now at 80 years old, on the other side of the world. Certainly there'll be some changes in the telemedicine laws. But, what are some of the big themes that you've been seeing?
Yeah, I think, as you said, COVID has really demonstrated the urgent need for practices to diversify away from in-practice services and hands-on care. Obviously, if you can't see people in the office, what else do you do? And so again, a lot of chiropractic, acupuncture practices have seen as okay, we need to figure out additional revenue streams and, going virtual. And so, COVID really has sort of been the starting point that people are forced to think about, is doing business as usual really the smart way going forward? And the other thing that has really come up is that, there's much more acceptance from the consumers that they want to think about not just health restoration, but, wellness promotion. And so this concept of functional medicine is smack in the middle of, how COVID has played out, how people boost their immune resilience. And so this is really the unique chance that big media, is focusing really on prevention, getting rid of comorbidities, etc. And so I think this is where practitioners are now really realizing the appeal of low overhead, digitally advanced micro practices powered by, as you said, virtual video conferencing that can really provide the freedom of travel. And so now a lot of people see this well, can I get out of my lease and, actually go full on virtual and make these moves? And so we're seeing a number of practitioners having made that shift over the last half year.
Absolutely, yeah, and you know, I have to say, for those practitioners who really went for it in the last 6 years since we've been doing this whole thing, and you know, the accelerator came out in 2016. You know, to see the stories of those practitioners that were, you know, still up and running, that patient lead acquisition was still working. They were able to see people in some cases with a membership practice. The money kept rolling in. And they were just keeping their patients like up to date and using telemedicine to keep them happy so that they would still pay their membership fees. That was, you know, super exciting, because I know that, you know, that a lot of family medicine and primary care was furloughed because you couldn't make up the high overhead. So I guess some of what we wanted to get in today was to, you know, to get into some of that and to talk about, look, what are the options for our functional medicine practitioner community? And one of the things I'm excited about today is that, you know, for a long time, you know, we've really focused on this, you know, low overhead, digitally advanced micro practice as a journey that any practice could take. And the reason why it's important is because from that starting point, from that foundation, anything is possible. And you could take it in many different ways. You could build up to a much bigger practice. You could move in different directions, but you have to have those pieces in place. And one of the reasons I'm excited to have Tamara here is because I think that, you know, taking insurance has been a very volatile place for functional medicine practice to be. And there's a lot of wreckage in our industry from people who have tried to do it and it hasn't worked. And even a lot of wreckage during COVID. And, you know, over the next few years, we do want to start to bring in a little bit more conversation, because I do see that certain practices are making it and doing it right. And not to say that we have all the answers right now, but this is like the first, you know, dipping our fingers, you know, feet into that conversation. And it's one, because people are working it out, but it's two, because also coding is changing. And the world is realizing that chronic disease is the biggest issue. And we're right in the right place to take advantage of it if we could just get organized. And so that's been our mission from the Evolution of Medicine for a long time. So why don't we just start by, you know, just to give you an idea of where we're going here today in the, you know, on the webinar, we're going to talk really about the practice success equation, right? And what we've seen is there's really three parts to it, right? You've got your clinical expertise. That's not really our area. You know, I know that for many of you who are listening, this is what you started off with. This is what you've been focused on, which is getting good at reversing chronic illness, getting good at keeping people well, you know, getting good at functional integrated medicine. And that's certainly one part. We have to get good at the practice operations of care delivery. And that's why I'm really excited that Tamara's here today, because I felt like at Functional Medicine Idaho, they had a really high level of operations with the care delivery. But one of the things that we have to get into first is that all of that happens after someone becomes a patient. And the reason why, you know, Uli and I have been so hot on marketing the practice and why this has been such a big issue is because, you know, if you go to a cash model and you don't do marketing properly, your clinical expertise and even your operations and care delivery is irrelevant, because there's no one showing up. And I know that many practitioners have had that experience too, where when you're trying to get cash from people, it's a different game. And so that's why we wanted to just like, let's start with that here today. So this is for literally anyone who's making a living running a practice. You know, we've got MDs, DOs, DCs, NDs, nurse practitioners, acupuncturists, RDs, you know, whatever type of practice you're working on, this is a good fit for you. If you use clinical knowledge to get people to the root cause of their conditions, then that's why we're here. We're here to serve you in building successful practices. And what we want to do in the next 45 minutes is show you, you know, a little bit about sort of what we're learning with marketing and why conventional medical marketing and even marketing in the sort of fringes of our world, and Uli's going to talk about that, doesn't work and what you need to do. We're going to talk about how to create a game plan to create a steady flow of new patients. And then we're going to talk about streamlining clinical operations and creating an amazing experience for all your patients. And Tamara's going to share some of the things that they're doing there at Functional Medicine Idaho. And we're going to get a little bit into, you know, the first little conversations that we're having on some of the best steps for billing functional medicine, billing insurance, and more than anything, like how to accelerate your practice growth. So Uli, let's jump into it. You know, I know that you're, you know, just for context here, right? Everything that Uli's sharing comes as a result of literally building hundreds of websites, helping hundreds of clinics, you know, build automated systems to onboard new patients. So, you're literally, you couldn't be hearing from someone who is right more in the thick of it than Uli. So let's jump into it, Uli.
Yeah, thanks, James. And so what we're really talking here when it comes to marketing functional medicine is, let's address the elephant in the room that, marketing is really something that causes a lot of overwhelm for practitioners. And so what I want to share with you really is that, that is a natural feeling. And, again, this is exactly how probably a lot of your patients feel, that they're stuck. They don't know why it's not working. And unless you really understand the why something isn't working, then it's, again, irrelevant on how to move forward, right? So what our goal is in this first part of the presentation is give you the clarity to understand why things may not work the way you think they should work and what to do instead, so that you have a path forward and grow from there. And so let's start with the sort of 3 problems that marketing functional medicine sort of seen. And the first one is really low market awareness regarding integrative and functional medicine. And certainly it's been better than it was 5 years ago. But, still to this day, most people in America, in the world, don't really know what integrative or functional medicine is. And because if they don't know what it is, then they're actually not actively seeking out that through, let's say, Google, through SEO, through PPC ads. So, a search-based marketing that clearly works when you are in the conventional medical world. If you are a dentist, if you're an acupuncturist, chiropractor, Botox, med spa, people understand what the service is that you deliver, and they're looking for that service on Google. They're searching for it. And so this is why SEO, Google PPC ad, directory listing, it works for those practitioners, but it doesn't work for integrative and functional medicine practitioners because of that missing search intent. And the other thing that's different really is when it comes to low market awareness is that a dentist, a chiropractor, because everyone knows what it is that they're selling, they can get away with a single ad for, let's say, a low-cost first visit, right? And that's enough to drive people to go to their website and make that appointment. But if people don't understand what it is that you're selling, then this single point advertising, as I call it, is really insufficient for them to appreciate how functional medicine is different and what to do. And so the solution for that problem is that you have to first build local market awareness, and ideally with paid Facebook video ads. And it is, if people are not searching for you, then you have to meet people where they're hanging out. And where do your consumers hang out? Well, it's social media, primarily Facebook and Instagram. And no matter what you think about the shenanigans going on social media, for your practice to really thrive, you have to reach out to people where they're at. And so it's about education-based marketing directly on Facebook and Instagram. And you have to deliver tailored content for your ideal patient avatar. Social media is a really noisy place, so you can't really stick out unless you're really focused on who you're serving, what problems are you solving in your practice for whom, and get clear on this. And once you know this, then using primarily videos to really share your message and share how you're different versus conventional medicine. And I'll get into sort of the messaging in just a moment, but the second problem is really that the value proposition when it comes to functional medicine is driven by outcomes, not procedures. And so what I mean by that is, like, if you're thinking back to the example of a dentist, you're going into a dentist office, you're getting a root canal, and an hour later you pay and you have received the value that you paid for. So it's a very easy transaction, and consumers understand that what they're really paying for is the procedure in the office. And that's not the case for integrative and functional medicine. People will receive the benefit of your advice. It's mostly your intellectual knowledge as a functional medicine practitioner that brings the value to them. It's about the behavior change that gets implemented about over 3-6 months. And it's not really readily apparent, what they're paying for when they're in an individual visit, as opposed to the entire program. And so the solution here is really that you have to demonstrate the expertise and, demonstrate that there's forward movement, that you care, that you deliver something that's not just happening in the office visit, to really demonstrate that what they're really paying for is the educational journey, is that 3 to 6 months, care paradigm that you take them through. And this has to be primarily through videos. We recommend a video series delivered via email to consistently nurture people before they become your patient and after they become your patient, so that they understand the value that you are giving them. And again, patient education is really critical in this scenario where, again, dentists, chiropractor, acupuncturists, they don't have to do patient education because the patient, the consumer already understands what it is that the service is for and what problem it addresses. But again, that's not the case with integrative and functional medicine and chronic disease. And so you have to really double down on patient education to not only educate, but also preemptively address objections. And the way to do this is really through bite-sized content to build trust to the point where they know, like, and trust you enough to get into a webinar, to get into a discovery call, to explore what it looks like partnering with you. And then the final problem that functional medicine has over regular conventional medical care is that there's a much higher barrier to initiate care. So as I said, typically 3 to 6 months packages, or if you're running a membership program, it is probably 6 to 9 months at a much higher cost compared to what people pay in family practice and in conventional care. And it is frequently not covered by insurance, although Tamara will obviously shed some more light on how to do it. But the solution here is really that when it comes to overcoming this part, that you have to, have consistent and relevant messages that show people why you are a great deal, why switching to you is really a smart way to finally address the chronic wellness issues that they're facing. So it comes down to consistent messaging across social media, your website, your email autoresponder, maybe the webinar. And it has to be relevant for them. It's not just important to be consistent and talk about the same thing over and over again so people finally get it, but it's also important to be relevant for your ideal patient prospects. And that requires that you have awareness. Who is your ideal patient avatar? Who can you help most? Who can you help overcome what exact problem? And this is sort of what we see all the time, that people say, as a functional medicine provider, I want to help everyone. And while that's true clinically, from a marketing perspective, it benefits if you start to niche down. And this can be sometimes niching down into specific disease areas, such as diabetes or gut health or hormones. But in other cases, it can be just positioning yourself as a functional generalist and make the distinction that, there's regular family care, family practice, and then there's maybe a family practice with a bent on functional medicine with a specific focus on chronic disease. So not saying that you have to always niche down to a clinical niche, but, you have to sort of position yourself in the eyes of your audience as decidedly different than the mainstream. And so what we find here is that the Socratic method to encourage critical thinking is the missing piece that is eluding so many practitioners. Working with hundreds of practitioners over the last 6 years, what James and I have seen is that a lot of practitioners don't know what to do on social media or what to do on their website. So, what I show you here on the next slide is really the 4-part messaging framework that we're recommending, that it allows you to really put the best foot forward on social media without giving away the bank and robbing people from the motivation to work with you one-on-one. And it always starts with the introduction, a quick hook to get people interested in what you have to say. So if it's a social media post, a written form, then it's really the first few sentences. If it's a video, then it would be the first few sentences in the video to get people interested in watching the rest and understanding what the next step is. Then it's important to talk about the conventional wisdom. Describe what the commonly held view is and how conventional medicine approaches their problem. And obviously, by extension, how they're still stuck. Why are they still stuck? Why is conventional medicine, why is the conventional approach right now not getting them to true root cause resolution? And, that's the first thing that you have to explain to your audience before they even decide, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now I understand why I've been stuck all along. And now if we're going into the integrative wisdom, now you're describing what they're missing from your viewpoint as a integrative or functional medicine practitioner. And, for them to appreciate that there is a totally different way at looking the problem that's very different from the regular conventional medical care, and how you are different, and then end with the next steps and call to action to get them to engage with you deeper. And so this is really the framework that, we didn't invent this. This has been around for thousands of years, but somehow the medical community hasn't gotten the memo that this is what you do on social media. This is what you do in your videos, on your website. It's always explaining how people are stuck so that they can logically understand that doing more of the same is not going to get them the results, and that it's really about changing course and moving in the integrative and functional medicine wisdom. So just to wrap up this section here, the key takeaways is that you have to be seen as different, as a compelling alternative to your medical peers. You can't be seen as the part of the medical establishment, because your audience will see, well, why should I switch to this integrative practitioner if they think you're doing exactly the same thing that the previous 5 doctors have done, right? So it's important to really draw out the differences, how you're different. And then number 2, you can't convince people in a single touch point, in a single encounter on social media or your website, for them to appreciate what functional medicine can do for them. So you need to pre-educate them over a series of touch points, and you simply can't do this manually. So you need an email autoresponder, you need an email sequence, you need to have a system to walk people through this process. And, for most of you, you're probably wondering, well, how does it work in practice? In the next slide, I sort of show how most practitioners go wrong with this by not doing enough nurture. So, what we see when James and I look at practitioners' website is that people do a little bit of organic social media, but they're not really doing it right because nobody told them how to do it right. And then the website is typically very practice-centric, so it's about selling your discovery call and your services, but it's really not meeting the needs of your patient that aren't even aware what functional medicine is. And so it's no wonder that practitioners are wondering why the discovery calls don't work out, why nobody signs up for it. It's simply because there wasn't enough nurture. And the other problem that we see is that some practitioners, they have webinars, live webinars, and they do Facebook ads, and they're wondering, why are my Facebook ads not working? And again, it's the same, root cause, that people don't know you, you haven't nurtured people enough. So a single Facebook ad pushing people to a webinar where they don't know the topic, where they don't know the presenter, that's a really tall first step to get this done. And so again, that's why discovery calls are so hard. And so ultimately, just like what you're doing in functional medicine, it's not about focusing on a single modality. It's not just focusing on nutrition or just on detox or just on movement or just on mindset. It's really in the synergistic interplay of all these elements that make success happen. And so, you have to do organic social media the right way. You have to boost awareness with paid ads. You have to have a website that pre-educates people and addresses objections. You have to have that nurture sequence through an email autoresponder with videos. And then ideally, have a webinar and a practice orientation video that really explains how your practice works. And when you have these elements together, that's when you get a predictable flow of ideal patients. They're eager and excited to work with you. And again, this does not happen in a day. This is a process, but to give you the clarity, this is what is entailed in doing marketing for functional medicine right. Telling the right message to the right people, consistently supported by marketing automation.
Yeah, I guess I want to just share, that this is something that, that Uli and I, when we came into this 6 years ago, like we both understood a little bit of what it took to market practices, and things have definitely, changed too. But, ultimately here we are at a point where, this is happening enough, and there's enough clinics that have this sort of system in place that, we can almost guarantee that if you follow this program, you can end up with a lot of high quality, local, nurtured leads. And the number one thing that I hear from practitioners who go through this process is that when people come and sit with you for their first appointment, it's like they already know you, right? Because they've already spent probably an hour or two in your presence because you've recorded these videos, you may have recorded a webinar. And so they're like, oh yeah, I know who this person is. I know where we're going. And they feel confident enough to switch. That confidence in the provider, is sort of has been created historically by the system, right? In that, like, oh, this person works for this hospital, so they must be good. Or this person's recommended by this insurance company, and so they must be good. And so ultimately what we've had to create in functional medicine is a new kind of ecosystem for credibility. And I wanted to make sure that we covered that in the first half here, because maybe some of you, you already have you have your marketing down, you have new patients come in because you've got a lot of word of mouth, and that's great. And that you can build a practice like that, but it does also takes a long time. And, what we're doing with this kind of structure, the good news is that if you start to build out this kind of structure, every effort that you do when you get people well and they tell people, there's a place for those referrals to come in and get nurtured through the process, so that they can learn from you too. And also, it's a real value add. I know a lot of practitioners feel like, they want to help their community get better, and they don't just want to do that one-on-one. And you can be sure that if you create an education machine like this with some of your best information that you've learned at conferences and you would share with people, you're helping a lot of people. For every person that comes through, there's 10 people that learn something, go ahead and, implement some part of it, and it's a positive effect on their life. So, what we're starting to see is that, one clinic that gets this right, there's sort of like a knock-on effect to the local community as these ads go out. And I kind of felt that a little bit actually in Idaho when I was up there, because I felt like, there was something in Boise where people were fired up about this, this operation of medicine, and it's a, small place with a lot of practitioners. And so we could start to see that here. So, Uli, thanks so much for sharing what you wanted to share. And Tamara, thanks so much for being here. Before we get into what you wanted to talk about, like I know that your practice is slightly different in that, from what you discovered, but, was there anything, what from Uli's conversation there resonated with your experience of, building Functional Medicine Idaho?
Well, everything, really. I mean, I also have a marketing background, so most healthcare doesn't get marketing right or messaging right. And it also has to be different, right? You have to connect. It's a different service. It's a different level of care. So all those touch points, getting your story clear, getting your message clear, not only to your patients, but also making sure, within your building, within your team, that the messaging is super, super clear. And once that's set, it just flows so naturally. So really everything you said was, I probably didn't smile enough, but it was so spot on and so important. It's getting that message right to connect with your patients in your community, because at some level, everybody needs functional medicine. Whether they know it or not, that's the key. And that's our job as functional medicine providers, or, whatever role we're in, is to help meet our community where they're at, get them in the door and get them better.
Absolutely. And I guess just to give you everyone who isn't familiar or hasn't watched this month's Functional Forum or the other things that we did, just to give you a little overview of Functional Medicine Idaho. So Sam and Amber Warren, who are the owners of the practice, great combination of business savvy, and Amber's a physician's assistant. They have the practice. They started with one location, and we first met Tamara at the end of 2018 when you got in touch about joining the Practice Accelerator, and I started to hear a little bit about what you were doing. And I have seen over time that it is a strong, significant advantage to have someone on the team that's not clinical, a partner, like in some cases, like a husband in this case, but in other cases, business manager as a starting to build out from the team. And, since then, Functional Medicine Idaho is now multi-location, multi-practitioner. If you watch the Functional Forum, they've attracted some of the top clinical talent in functional medicine, like Tom Malter and Dr. Mark Holthaus, to be on the clinical team. And they have now, preconception, pediatrics, and family medicine, group visits, all kinds of things that we're going to talk about here today. So, I know what you're going to share here today is some challenges that you see in the delivery of functional medicine and some of the solutions you come up with. So why don't we just jump into that, Tamara? What's the first challenge you want to talk about?
Gosh, well, Managing expectations, an insurance-based functional care model. I know that's been kind of a hot topic. I've been in the forum and seeing, and I'll start off by saying it's not easy, but our goal is to deliver functional medicine to our community. And so we've been really committed for the past several years at doing just that. How do we take insurance? It's honestly, being an insurance-based practice brings quite a lot of pressure to our entire team. As we've grown, that team has gotten larger. So the pressure has been just kind of, sinking in. So as a leadership team, what we needed to do was to create the right team. And then in part of that was getting the messaging right? So we get our messaging right. Then on top of it, we have to explain insurance. And every insurance company reimburses differently. Some appointments are covered, some are not. And I think there is a little bit of a misconception at least in Idaho, and I'm from the East Coast, I'm still learning all the insurance jargon out here, but it's awesome. You think your insurance covers it, but not if you have a really high deductible. It still feels like the patient still feels like they're paying out of pocket, even though having a deductible and receiving services is a benefit for the insurance that the patient has opted in to participate in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, 100%.
So insurance is awesome, and we're super committed to that model, but the challenges that have come up over the past several years have just brought a lot to the forefront and have kind of the layers of the onion have gotten deeper and deeper. Our current insurance model is not equipped to handle functional medicine the way it's currently set up. It's longer prep times, longer appointments, nutrition, coaching to really help tackle these comorbidities that Uli was mentioning and get out ahead and get into the preventative component of what we're trying to deliver. It's difficult. It's difficult to do that with insurance. So over the past, I feel like we're actually constantly reassessing our customer service approach to manage expectations of our patients. We've gone back and forth about having just a benefits team that actually checks the benefits of our patients prior to their appointments. We've talked about just having schedulers to just schedule to allow our patient care coordinators to open up their bandwidth to be more involved in insurance. We've had and we continue to try so many different approaches, and I feel like we're just starting to get into the groove. Our solution has been patient onboarding with a patient experience navigator and developing a solid billing and compliance team. And just to keep in mind, we're obviously a growing larger practice, but I do think all the things that I'm going to bring up in terms of solutions are applicable to smaller practices. I don't think you guys all necessarily need these huge teams to do this. I think that there are people out there. But as James said, I think one of the keys is marrying clinical and business savvy is really, really important.
I guess I just want to share one thing from my experience of going there is that when I interviewed Sam, and we didn't put this on the forum, if you want to go to a new place, which is you want to do functional medicine on insurance, they got not just some medical biller, but like the best medical biller that was there and that someone was passionate about working this out. There is going to be a lot of emotional labor that's required to go and work and find out and deal with the frustration of this infinitely annoying and complex system. And so you need someone at your back who's going to really take responsibility for that because they see the big vision of where this is going. And so your average medical biller who, doesn't like their job and, is sitting at home billing and smoking, is not your best friend and is not going to get you there. And so I just want to I think that was one thing that I wanted to see that I saw is that you built a billing team around someone who was not just an expert, but someone who wanted to be part of the solution of healthcare, right?
And that's one of the huge takeaways from today and just in general in the role that I'm in is how important it is to have not just the buy-in from your team, but have people that are passionate about it. So all of us as providers, I've gone through IFM, I've taken the exam. We all have our story and what brought us into functional medicine. Most people, I had gut problems or I had this or I had that, and they found functional medicine and it's healed them and it's helped them and they're so passionate that the messaging is clear. That's not always the case when you get into healthcare. You can get, like you said, billing, or you can get a medical assistant. Not providers, they all have to be into functional medicine, but it's just as important, and I'll touch on this in a little bit, that your team is as passionate and excited and enthused about functional medicine as your providers are, or as your patients are. So that was huge. So you just kind of touched on one of my topics, but We had to get really creative and efficient while not losing focus of improving patient outcomes and delivering exceptional care. That's through group visits, shared medical, incorporating primary care. Buy-in and messaging is huge. And that was one of our huge takeaways from the accelerator. You just mentioned our director of billing and compliance and her team. Compliance is huge. That's probably gonna be my word today, is huge. And having a team that we can rely on has made a significant impact on our ability to be successful in the insurance model. There is no way we could do this without our billing team. There's just no way. They're passionate about what we're doing, like you just said, and they're also passionate about delivering exceptional customer service. The patients that we see, not all of them, but a lot of patients that come to functional medicine are at the end. They spent a lot of money. They don't feel good. They're sick of being told that they feel good and they should be fine, and they don't. So developing a team, especially a billing team that's now on the other end, that's on the phone all day with insurance, that's on the phone all day with patients, walking them through these different CPT codes, why it's different. Again, takes me back to what Uli said, is patient education before, which is also a huge takeaway from the accelerator. But so now we've developed this billing team who's passionate and excited and experts at insurance. Another component or another solution to managing expectations of our patients in an insurance-based model was the addition of our patient experience navigators. We had talked about some type of orientation with our patients for a while, and then we brought on Dr. Mark Holthouse, and he had already actually had a position similar to a patient experience navigator. And what that position really helped us do was help the patient understand the level of commitment on their end that it takes, and that the journey to optimal health, which is one of our tags, right, is just that, a journey. It's not just you come in for one appointment. So that patient experience navigator really is the first touch point, like verbal or face-to-face touch point that our patients have. And right now we have one, we're adding another one. And what she does is she sets the foundation. These are the expectations. Yes, we take insurance. Here are some different codes that you might not normally have seen before or have been billed before. Here's what they mean. Here's why they're there. Here's how functional medicine is different. Here's what our providers invest in you before you even walk into the door, right? So that's been really, really huge. Getting the buy-in, planting the seed. And then she reviews our entire patient process, which I'll also touch on. It was a challenge and something that we came up with before our patients even see our providers. We establish that therapeutic relationship with them outside of that clinical interaction.
I think that's such a huge point. I just want to reinforce that. So the relationship is being built with the clinic and not always with that one provider, right? Because that has to be the future. Like if the clinician has to be responsible for the relationship building, it either has to be way too expensive or you can't do it on insurance. And I think that that's one of the pieces, like this patient navigator that sits with people before they start with care, because you guys have worked out that if you build that relationship well, they're going to be great customers of the clinic over time. And you're going to be able to, the lifetime value of the customer is going to be such that you can afford to, to build that customer. And I think that's a huge piece that I don't want people to, to think that's not a small deal.
Right. And that's huge. That brings me into, I think I'm actually going to switch up challenge number 2. I'm going to jump to number 3 that I originally shared. So another challenge that we were faced with was providing exceptional care throughout their journey. And that's not just the responsibility of the provider. And you just hit on that, James, right? So how do we ensure our patients are receiving exceptional care that's rooted in functional medicine in all their experiences with us? As we've all touched on, functional medicine is not just come in, get your medicine. It's this whole experience. It's creating an experience. It's a journey. It's several appointments. It's, our patient process can be anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks. And that's getting at the root. That's establishing that rapport. And then there's an ongoing maintenance. But I don't know if we've talked about this before. I always look at if we look at our patient experience as a pie chart, where are they spending most of their time? Are they talking to our billing department? Are they on hold? Are they scheduling appointments? We already know they're getting exceptional care with our providers. I mean, our providers are trained with IFM. We have ongoing education that's going on. We have a world-class medical director that also brings another level of expertise and expectation to the care that we deliver from a provider perspective. Where else are they with our MAs, our phlebotomist? Are they at a shared medical visit? Are they in the waiting room? You know, who are they with the nurse? Who are they with? So our challenge has been delivering exceptional care with each of those different pieces. So making sure our patient experience navigator is delivering exceptional care to meet our standards, our needs, and expectations of our patients. Same thing with our coaches. So our solution, which this is one of the things I'm really excited about, and because it's taken a while to get here, but we're really, really proud of where we've come, is building a solid leadership team, an inspired management team, an enthused clinical and admin support team, and IFM trained providers. Because as leadership, we can be as versatile and excited about functional medicine. We can't do that without the rest of our team. And because we've gotten so large, now we have all these different departments. You know, when we were small and we had 3 providers and we all kind of sat in the same room, the messaging and the enthusiasm and the energy was contagious within us. Now we have multiple practice, and that's not just in healthcare. That's any time a business is expanding, whether it's a CPG company or a healthcare company, it doesn't really matter. So I think that we're definitely an exception when it comes to healthcare. Internal messaging is just as important as external messaging for us. We recruited a solid leadership team. We have an MBA, an MD, a PA, experienced compliance and billing director. I'm an RN. We have on our team over 20 years of combined functional medicine experience, but that's only a piece of the puzzle from a leadership perspective. When we were smaller, and it was Sam and myself, I bridged the gap between Sam and Amber in terms of having clinical experience and managerial and marketing experience in business. You just can't, it's difficult to get your messaging out there if you're seeing patients all day. So it can be a little bit scary, I think, to make that investment in other team members. But once you do that, everything starts to come together. And it took us a little while to learn that, but building that team was important. Our management team is really new. This is, 6 to 9 months that we've been building a managerial team. And they're responsible for really applying actionable strategies on a daily basis in real time to navigate our day-to-day operations. Does a practice of 3 providers or 2 providers need somebody like this? Not necessarily, but I think there's a lot of takeaways in terms of qualities and characteristics of what these different people bring to your team. And I think that smaller practices can find one person who's maybe a nurse who has who's into social media and marketing and who understands branding, or who's really passionate about that, to bring on their team. So some of the new positions that we have a manager of professional and organizational development. We have a practice manager, a clinical lead who's an RN. We have a nutrition lead and a marketing manager. They have all started within us and meshed into different positions. And I don't want to fool anybody. They don't just play one role with us. They wear multiple hats, and their value has been in their ability to be adaptable with us and fill in these gaps. So it's taken a while to build this team, but they are so integral, because otherwise our leadership team is practicing and communicating, and then our clinical team is practicing and communicating. There has to be someone that's bridging that gap and helping the communication and continuing to refine the messaging. The other team that's just so critical to our support, our success, is our clinical and admin team. Our MAs, our phlebotomists, our RNs, our patient care coordinators, our navigators. They're doing such great work under the guidance of our managers and team leads. And they are the pulse of the practice. They are the chi. I always say, if you guys are the pulse of the practice, you set the tone for everybody's experience here. And one of our challenges has been getting them up to speed in functional medicine. So recruiting is really, really tough. There's a lot of medical assistants out there who don't know anything about functional medicine. And there's a lot of great patient care coordinators or receptionists who are out there, the same thing with billing, right? But getting people who, I've heard of functional medicine, and my mom wasn't feeling good, and she saw a naturopath who was into functional medicine, and she's feeling better, and I'm just really passionate because it's healing my gut. Those are our patient care coordinators now. Those people who are finding us because they're starting to be passionate is really great. Providers, that's not our biggest challenge. Everyone on our team is either certified or progressing through certification through IFM, the gold standard in training. That is something that we value really highly. So that certification, along with case studies, ongoing internal trainings, they just help us to continue to provide exceptional care through a consistent operating system. So it's almost like, and I know Amber has said in different interviews, we're on this train and we're moving forward. And there was an element through when Sam and Amber acquired the practice of either people are jumping on board and they're like, let's move this train forward, or they're kind of the caboose and they're slowing it down. And or some people are jumping board, right? You're jumping off in the train. Right now, I feel like we have a really strong train moving forward, and everybody has that momentum, and it just feels really good to be in this position. And I think, kind of coming back to the practice accelerator and looking back, James, when we met, and Sam's experience, and just in some of our leadership meetings in terms of, gosh, how have we gotten where we are? And I think the practice accelerator really helped us. We were doing some things really, really well, but we also know, like, we needed more. We wanted to enhance. We're not a complacent organization by any means, especially when we're trying to lead the pack in multi-specialties and be an insurance-based practice. But the accelerator really met us where we were at and helped us identify gaps in our organization from an operational perspective, from a messaging perspective, and identify those gaps, but also help give us some solutions and some different ways to help navigate that. And I think, our messaging, our team, a lot of that was stemming from a lot of what James and his team kind of brought to the table. And a lot of it's about asking the big question, right? Ask, what are the big questions? Where are the gaps? And it sounds kind of funny, but living into those answers, finding the right team, trusting the process, and having James's guidance and his team's guidance was really helpful.
Appreciate you sharing that, Tamara. And I guess one of the reasons why we've never had a conversation like this really at the Evolution of Medicine. And, Uli, I guess I just wanted to come back to you. I mean, a lot of the hardest work in functional medicine is going from 0 to 1, right? 0 patients to 1 patient, 1 patient to 10 patients, 10 patients to 100 patients, right? You have to start to build these systems and move forward. But the reason why we created the Practice Accelerator, why we called the Practice Accelerator, is we want to accelerate the practice of functional medicine into the world. And ultimately why, when I came to Functional Medicine Idaho and saw, like, when you guys started, you were dealing with like very small problems, and now you're dealing with like bigger problems. And just to hear, the team that you have now, I know that there's probably a lot of people out there that feel like, I'd love to have that sort of support around me. Well, that's in like in a 2-year, 18-month to 2-year window to get to a point where, this thing is moving forward. And I guess I wanted to just share this because I just feel like there's a certain amount of like inferiority syndrome that we live in functional medicine, because like functional medicine's small and it only thinks small, doesn't think big. And I really want the whole industry to think big, because it's going to take thinkers like that and actors like that and doers like that to be able to take this where it needs to go. And maybe if you're listening to this, what you've heard today is maybe you just want to be an employee, right? Maybe that's a better fit for you, so you could just do the clinical medicine. But there will be significant winners and significant difference makers in our space who decide that they want to like really lean into being a clinician entrepreneur and building the new future of care. And that's what's happening in Functional Medicine Idaho. And that's what I'm, excited to support. But whether you just want to, like Uli said earlier, like there's plenty of practitioners who build the micro practice, run it all online, and, spend 3 months a year at the beach, right? Because they can. And they've worked it out like that. And if there's that possibility on one end, and on the other end, there's the possibility to really chip away at this chronic disease, epidemic, that we have here in America and all around the world. But ultimately, as I said, there was a subject line for one of my recent emails, which is like, choose your own adventure. Right? People are building whatever clinic makes them feel happy. And I wanted to share your example because ultimately we want to see those kind of clinics coming out of these micro practice initiations. What do you think, Uli?
Yeah, one of the things that comes up for me, and you alluded to this as well as Samara, is, the time it takes to have you make a decision, whatever that decision is, and then moving forward. So it's not, when you look at what Functional Medicine of Idaho has done in 18 months, in 2 years, it is really the speed at which they're making decision on how to change course and how to move forward. So this idea of procrastination and waiting half a year trying to figure it out on yourself just delays that decision making. And it's this set of iterative decision making. You may not exactly be right or wrong, but it's about just make a decision and move forward. And so this is where the benefit of mentorship, of coaching, of peer-to-peer support is so important, that you can ask other clinicians, what EMR should I be using? I'm an MD, taking insurance, and then you have 5 people saying, don't use this one, don't use this one, use this one. We have good reviews for this one. Makes your decision making so much easier. And it's like, okay, I'm just going with that one. Same with your, practice tech, whatever it is, from EMR, from your autoresponder, from your office software. People have been there before, so there's no need for you to reinvent the wheel. And it's really leveraging the power of community. That works for a patient. That's super powerful. Newsflash, it works for practitioners as well. And what we need is more community among clinicians, among clinical entrepreneurs, people passionate about this kind of healthcare, so that we can shorten the time for you to make a decision, giving you more comfort, more certainty that you're taking the right decision and that you're not procrastinating, knowing exactly what you need to be doing, which then reduces overwhelm. All of these are powerful things that they're the closest thing to a time machine, moving you forward to accelerate your practice, as you said, James.
Absolutely. So I just wanted to take a minute to just introduce what the Practice Accelerator is for those of you who don't know. I mean, ultimately what we've created is a training course and a community to help you confidently grow your practice while honoring your purpose. Simple as that, right? And the fundamentals of the course are the fundamentals that Uli was talking about earlier. So the idea is, we want people to be, to be able to build a practice that is a solid foundation for everything that comes after. And that looks like creating a consistent flow of patients, thinking about overhead, thinking about the way that you, the way that you delivered care, pre-educating your prospects about the value of the medicine in a scalable way, leveraging technologies for scheduling, phone consultations, supplement management, practice management, like all the things that you need to, to just get started and get moving in the right direction. So, some people have used it who operate an existing practice like Functional Medicine Idaho. They just acquired this practice and wanted to start with that. Or if you plan to start one, right? If you're starting right from the beginning and you want to attract your first 100 patients into the practice, like what's that going to take? You're going to benefit from increased efficiency, sustainable marketing and patient outreach is kind of what Uli talked a bit about earlier. And then the peer-to-peer support, like Uli said, like if you have questions, being able to come into a place where, people can ask those questions. And, it's people who are willing to work to become a true business owner. So Uli, you want to take it through the different pieces?
Yeah, so obviously the first part is the online course, which is, constantly updated. And, what that entails is in module 1, we're going to talk about the, niching and positioning. So really answering the question, who are the people I can best help? And again, we talked about this earlier. You can help clinically everyone. Everything probably starts with a gut component, but, really sort of deciding what you want to message out there, what message you want to put out there and how to do this. Then in module 2, we're really talking about the business model and care delivery. So, when you look at the triangle of success, that's sort of a key component. Once people come in the door, now what? So how do I deliver care effectively and profitably? How does it need to be priced? Do you use a fee-for-service model? Do you use insurance-based billing? Do you have packages, or do you go for a membership model? I mean, these are sort of key questions that will really shape how your business operates, and you want to get this right. And then in module 3, really talking about how to deliver effective care with the least overhead. So then how can you use technologies, like at Functional Medicine Idaho, that, make this streamlined, that you're not wasting time going back and forth with scheduling. What are the best technologies that work 24/7, 365 days a year? Module 4, we're going to talk about, optimizing patient education, which is really critical. It's like, how do I get paid for my expertise rather than only my time? What are the expectations that your audience has coming into the clinic? And then obviously once they are part of your patient population, how are they excited to continue care beyond just maybe the 3 to 6 months? So that's a key concept, to really educate people, because you can't do this manually. You can't have a patient care coordinator, an office manager do this manually. So you need to figure out how to can and clone this and have this as video parts. And then module 5 is really the marketing foundations. How do you actually get the word out? Now that you understand who you're serving, what your clinical program looks like, how this all works, and what the patient education piece is, then how do you get the attention of the people I can best help? And as I said before, this is where it's not more about SEO and Google PPC ad and relying on people already searching for you, but it's really meeting people where they're at. And again, prior to COVID, that used to be online, in-person workshops. Now it's mostly webinars, but there's sort of a digital component to get the word out and market this. And again, it's about knowing exactly what works. We talked about the 4-part formula. That's sort of the missing piece that we're teaching in the accelerator, so that you are empowered to sort of understand how to do the marketing. Then, the next part is the execution plan. So there's a lot of things that happen over again. For instance, how do you set up an autoresponder, or how do you set up an online appointment scheduler, or what kind of online appointment scheduler questionnaire should you have, or how do you run Facebook ads? So we have a library of what we call execution plans that are step-by-step video tutorials that if you can watch a video, then you and your team can actually execute the task, on your own. The third part that's key of the Practice Accelerator is obviously the peer-to-peer community. That's what we're most proud of, what we've built. We really tap the collective hive mind of what other practitioners have done. There's people like, Tamara and her team, there's Laura Sellier, there's so many alumni that have gone through the Practice Accelerator and that are more than happy to share what has worked for them, what they're working on right now, so that you get really feedback from the people that are in the trenches, that are doing this day in, day out. And it's not just a theoretical course, but this is as I said, your fast track to make decisions, because you can just ask the question, and then the community will give you the answer that you're looking for. And then finally, number 4, as a component, you have, beyond a vibrant Facebook group, marketing and website reviews. This is what James alluded to, that, me and my team at the Evolution Medicine are assisting practitioners in looking at their websites, looking at their marketing funnel, looking at all the individual gears that should be in place, and helping you decide, which gear do I need to build next? How do I go about it? What do I need to know? And so, again, our ecosystem, our Practice Accelerator is sort of your lifeline, that you're saying, hey, how do I do this? If the resource isn't there, we're going to create it for you so that you get the answers that you need. And then I think in terms of bonuses that we add, we have a constantly updated library of expert training. We have regular coaching calls every month to talk about different, issues.
Yeah, so look, I know a lot of you spent a lot of money on getting your clinical, training up and running. And ultimately, that could be as much as, hundreds of thousands of dollars. You may have gone through different clinical education, integrative and functional medicine. There's plenty of programs that you can spend $10, $20, $30, $100,000 on, right? With practice marketing and, all these kind of things. I mean, ultimately, you really just have to think about what it takes to build a successful practice. We're super confident that, whatever model of practice you choose, whether you want to do a membership or do cash packages, or, I'm not going to tell you that we can help you to build at this moment the insurance-based practice, but we're going to learn everything we can in the next few years about how to do it from people like Functional Medicine Idaho, from other people out there who are making it work with a slightly different tweak on the way that functional medicine is being delivered. This is available with, right now for $31.97. There's no travel, there's no additional costs. You go through the initial training, the 5-part modules. You can ask questions in the group. You can start to apply that, whatever kind of practice you're running. And, in the medium term, our vision for this is really to bring together those clinicians that are taking this to the next level. And you'll be hearing from some of those stories in the weeks and months to come of people that are really trying to take this, to the masses in all different types of ways. So, there's so much value here to the program. You can join in installments. If you go to goevomed.com/join, that's when you can join either in installments or you can pay the one-time price. And, you can also try it out for 30 days, like go through the modules. If you don't think that there is value there, if you don't think that, you're not getting what you expect in those first 30 days, we will have no problem in giving you a refund. We're confident in it. We've had hundreds of practitioners that have come through it. Ultimately, sometimes it's a shakeup for practitioners to think about what they really want. Do they want to be an entrepreneur? Do they want to be an employee? That wasn't really an option, a few years ago. You had to be an entrepreneur if you wanted to do functional medicine, but there are clinics that are growing now that are looking for employees, and maybe that's your future. But ultimately, I know that there's a lot of practitioners out there who want to live on their own terms, who want to be able to control their own destiny, who want to be able to spend more time with their family and, be able to have, a kind of a better work-life balance. And the key to all of that is automation. And that's what we spend so much time talking about: automation of education, automation of marketing, automation of systems and processes, automation of patient experience. And we've heard all about that here today. So just a reminder, this is all the stuff that you're going to get. You're going to get the course, you're going to get the execution plans, you got the done for you resources, you got the community, and then the bonus, you're going to get a website marketing funnel review with Uli. And to get started, go to goevomed.com/join. All right. So thanks so much for everyone for being here. Thanks for all the questions. If you want to put in your questions into the side, we'll take some time to answer those questions, and get into it. So actually, I'm seeing there's a few questions here, Uli, just about the process. But actually, we've had, Tamara, I'm not as expected. There's a lot of questions about how you guys are pulling it off. And, Uli, I mean, as well as I do, having from speaking to, thousands of practitioners, there's a lot of practitioners that have tried to do insurance and haven't made it work, right?
Yeah, so what we've seen is like across the spectrum of people that have gone through the Practice Accelerator, that most of them have experimented with membership models and packages, and those are sort of the most popular. Some people have still a fee-for-service as they're easing into the transition. So you're right, there's not that many that have a strong insurance-based base. There's a few that have that came from a traditional family medicine background, and there's still sort of family medicine with a functional medicine lens. And so part of the operation is still sort of in the old paradigm using insurance, reimbursement, and then you have sort of like a wellness or functional medicine add-on that is much more reliant on cash-based add-ons.
All right. Yes. And, look, we've featured a lot of practitioners in the evolution of medicine over time. Like Christopher Moat is a great friend, and someone who, if you've ever seen him lecture, you see that he is very open with his books and his practice. And he has a insurance-based primary care practice, and he has a cash-based functional medicine practice, but it's two separate businesses. It's two separate businesses and two separate locations, and the shifting point from one to another is a full practice orientation that everyone has to go to understand and manage expectations. What you were saying earlier there, Tamara, about managing expectations. I mean, Tamara, I know, you guys are still sort of working on building the model. Is there maybe one thing that you guys are doing differently than the billing that has made a big difference to you?
That's a really great question. Initially, I would say yes, and then we added other specialties. So women's health and OB is so different. I'm kind of in that world where it's all becoming a little bit of a blur. In terms of insurance, do what you know and do it well, and then build from there. So if you're comfortable with certain codes or codes, do what's working, do what's always been working for you, and then maybe inquire, maybe try to consult or find a friend who works in billing for the hospital, or find someone who knows coding. I mean, there's people out there that you can consult with to say, hey, I'm working really well with these codes. These are good. I'm not sure about this, or this. How can you help me figure out, I'm spending longer times. And there's, like Willie said, there's different models. So you can do primary care cash insurance based and then add on functional cash. There are ways to get functional medicine covered for sure. But that also took us having an amazing, like I said, billing and compliance director, and now a team of four billing and coders. So if you're going to dabble in functional in terms of longer visits and things getting covered, it gets a little murky. It definitely is beneficial to have someone who you can trust to jump in there.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's not a decision to take lightly, and it's something that you really need to really think about if that's the way that you're moving forward. And ultimately, I know that when doctors go into conventional practice and just start billing insurance, it's a very run-of-the-mill kind of thing. You have your biller and you do your thing and you bill your codes. But ultimately, if you have chronic disease patients that need a lot more time and attention, there will be other considerations. So, what I know that we can definitely do here at the Evolution of Medicine is help you build a practice that is a membership model if you're more like primary care-ish, a packages model, or a fee-for-service model if you're chronic disease reversal. And we have so many examples of that in our accelerator, in our community right now.
Well, and remember too, in functional medicine, we're still all licensed medical professionals. We're still seeing diabetes, hypertension, metabolic. I mean, we're still seeing patients with healthcare concerns. So in that way, we actually have that in common, right? It's not like we're jumping into this new healthcare. I mean, it's a paradigm shift. Yeah. So it's a paradigm shift for us, and it's a paradigm shift for insurance. So having someone who can help kind of be the liaison to understand that and not take away from your time with your patients or the quality of care that you're providing. And I think that's what people forget. Like, oh, it's functional medicine. It's real medicine. It's based off of the same foundation.
I guess from the people that I've spoken to that are doing functional medicine on insurance, it's less like, hey, let's look what functional medicine looks like in a cash primary care practice or cash private care practice and try and do that through billing. It's more like, hey, this is how you run a medical practice doing this kind of care, and this is how we're going to infuse it with this functional medicine etiology, the functional medicine thinking process. And I think that's what I saw there. Like, it runs very much like a medical clinic, but the things like the coordinator, the health coach, the groups, the longer appointments, like those things are worked out in a way to reinforce rather than, replicate, I guess.
And we're filling a gap in our healthcare system. We're filling that preventative chronic disease management, reversal prevention role, which has been huge. I mean, I know our hospital system here has been, one of their strategies for 2020 is community health. How do we provide more preventative services to our community? How do we make it more affordable? And it's interesting because even our nation is looking, I mean, we're one of the unhealthiest nations in the world, and it's crazy. So we're filling a gap. I think from a functional medicine perspective or from a medical perspective, functional medicine's just a little bit further ahead. We're further ahead of medical schools, or further ahead of a lot of hospital systems and insurance model. And I think they'll catch up. I do think there's also a way to do it lightly, and we have to build those relationships to get everybody to jump on board with us. And it's happening, it's coming. I mean,
yeah, I mean, look, we're in the right place at the right time, you know, with the right thing. Like, there is going to be a focus on prevention, and this is a pioneering moment for sure. So look, we really appreciate all the work that you're doing to pioneer for the whole community. So look, one other thing, if you're on the fence and you want to just talk to someone, you go to goevomed.com/concierge-call. You could book a call with one of our team. We're going to make that available here just till the end of September. You know, only twice a year do we take people into the accelerator. So until the end of September, you book a call with the concierge call, talk to them, see if it's a good fit for you. It may be, it may be not. We'd love to help you in your growth. Hey, so Uli, we've had some questions here about actually what this looks like, the 6 gears or the gears that you shared, and what this actually practically looks like. So how about we go through and just sort of give people like a little look as to what this practically looks like. You okay with doing that?
Yeah. You know, I obviously anticipated a question. You know, it's when I meet with people one-on-one, you know, that's always a part. Is like, well, okay, here's the theory, here's the pictures, but what does it really look like? And so what you see here is like, you know, video ads on Facebook. You know, you can put money behind it, but obviously you can also just schedule them as part of your regular organic social media posting. And you know, what you see here is that people are scrolling on Facebook, on Instagram, they're looking for cat and dog pictures to be entertained, and then here comes along your video. And it's not the picture or the text above the video that is really stopping people. It's that major headline, you know, 3 major obstacles to weight loss, or on the right, the number 1 thing to know about chronic pain. And so it really calls out to people with a problem that they're having, and then encourages them to watch the video. You can deliver value in advance. People can just watch it and they get value out of your insight. And again, the video is following this 4-part formula of, you know, opening hook, then the conventional wisdom, transitioning into the integrated functional wisdom, and then the call to action. And the call to action here is, hey, if you want to go deeper on chronic pain, sign up for my free video series. So that's where they go from social media over to your website. And so on the next slide, what you see here is that they end up on your landing page on your website. They're opting in, they're clicking the green button, and then what they see is that you're collecting the email and you know, their first name, last name. And then the next thing that happens is obviously that they're going to the thank you page, which is one of the most critical pages on your website, because 100% of the people that are opting in will get to see that welcome video. And so this is your chance to let them know what your practice is about. It's like, hey, your requested guide, your requested video is on its way to your inbox, but while you wait, let me tell you about our practice. And, you know, in this case, this is Doug Henner. So he talks about his practice in North Carolina. And then obviously we're offering people the opportunity to join your Facebook group there, to join a group of like-minded health seekers, or you can offer people to schedule a discovery call. So again, this is this choose your own adventure philosophy that some people are ready to get on the phone with you. So we want to make it easy for them to schedule that call. And then the other people, they just wait and sit back. And you know what they're getting next is an email in their inbox that directs them back to your website to watch a video on the day's topic. So they're getting 10 days of emails, each with a video thumbnail, and then they get to watch you. And again, this is your chance to not just present the information, but really to, you know, people get to see your face, they hear your voice, they see how passionate you are about your topics. And so again, that is key in building comfort, you know, building connection, get people to know, like, and trust you enough that they are actually scheduling their discovery call. And so then if they decide to schedule that discovery call, then obviously we want them to enter some information that, you know, they're pre-qualified, that you have the information that you need to help them think this through. And then finally, we want to leverage technology. You know, once they are on your calendar, they're getting an email with a link to a practice introduction video where, again, you can give them a virtual walkthrough of your clinic. You can share you know, what it happens in the discovery call as opposed to the first paid appointment, the case review, and then what happens in month 1, 2, 3, you know, how is your practice set up? And so as part of this video, you can then really address a lot of the objections of, you know, why are you taking or not taking insurance? What about supplements? What about lab testing? What is your philosophy? Why are you getting to the root cause as opposed to, trying to do this with pills? So again, all the things that stop consumers in their track to say yes to you, you can address this in a simple 15 to 20-minute video. You record this once, and that again is another touch point ahead of the discovery call, so that by the time they show up to talk one-on-one with you, they have already decided that they want to partner with you and your team. And that discovery call is then more of a logistical exchange of specific questions that they have. But again, that makes it so much easier to have these discussions. I know marketing is not most practitioners' favorite subject, but when you have people that are excited to work with you and show up in these discovery calls predetermined to partner with you, then it's a lot easier to have this conversation, because energetically it doesn't feel draining. You're not twisting arms. You're not trying to sell people on the experience. They have already sold themselves on this, and now it's just about answering the questions and then welcoming them into your practice.
Absolutely. Well, look, I really appreciate you just, sharing that, because I think it's easy for practitioners to see it. I mean, ultimately, you need some sort of way to bring traffic, to the practice, and you need some sort of way to convert it. And I guess one of the things that we've done, even inside the Practice Accelerator, was like a video challenge where people were shooting videos, because ultimately you can't do this all yourself. Like, the reason why functional medicine practices historically and functional medicine practices that take insurance historically have not worked is because everyone's trying to manually do everything and trying to explain everything, all those kind of things. And you need to find scale to do that. The easiest way to do that is with video. You can do with group orientations. There's like lots of different ways that you can do it, but ultimately people need to know a lot about how to participate in this medicine. And that's why we need to use the power of automation, to do that. So thanks so much, everyone, for being here. If you have more questions, we'll get back to you one-on-one about them. If you are ready to join, go to goevomed.com/join. If you're on the fence, go to goevomed.com/concierge-call. You can take the next step with one of our team. We really hope that, we can be of service in helping you and your practice and you achieve to your vision, whatever that vision might be. So thank you again. I want to say a big thank you to Tamra. Tamra, I know that you're super busy over there at Functional Medicine Idaho. I'm super excited about, the vision that you guys have for transforming functional medicine and growing it substantially, not just in Idaho, but beyond. I'm really excited to see the team coming to there. Some of my favorite people involved in that project. And Uli, I know in this last year, just your expertise in what it takes to consistently grow a practice, is just been continually, up leveling all the time. And I think, what you shared today is just we're way further down the road than we knew, 4 years ago when we started the Practice Accelerator. So it's a great time to start and join and be part of it. So thanks everyone for being here. This has been The Evolution of Medicine. I'm your host, James Maskell. Thanks so much for being here, and we'll see you next time.